Not long ago, a company like Blockbuster stood as the undisputed king of its industry, armed with thousands of physical stores and a massive global footprint. The same was true for Lehman Brothers in the financial sector. These were corporate titans that appeared permanently entrenched at the top of their fields. So how do empires with endless capital and top-tier talent go bankrupt almost overnight? It is tempting to look at these massive corporate disasters and blame a sudden string of unforeseeable bad luck. But that assumes these companies were managing risk. They weren't. They were simply reacting to crises. Crisis management is scrambling to put out a fire that's already burning down your house. Risk management is recognizing the faulty wiring and replacing it before a spark ever catches. To understand why modern corporations actually fail, we have to look past the smoke and examine the 5 hidden fault lines of business and the warning signs these leaders chose to ignore. The first fracture point is strategic risk. This is what happens when a company's leadership anchors their entire future to a market or technology that is actively disappearing. In 1975, a Kodak engineer actually invented the first digital camera, but leadership suppressed the technology to protect their highly profitable physical film margins. They ignored the shift in consumer preferences, leaving the door wide open for competitors, and eventually filed for bankruptcy. Nokia made a similar error. In 2007, they controlled over half the global mobile phone market. Then Apple released the touchscreen iPhone, shifting the industry from hardware to software. Nokia stubbornly clung to its legacy operating system, and their market share collapsed in less than 5 years. The second fault line, compliance risk, is often treated as a boring paperwork exercise. In reality, strict adherence to laws and environmental regulations is a structural requirement for survival. When the EPA tightened diesel emission standards in the United States, Volkswagen didn't redesign their engines. Instead, they installed defeat devices, software specifically programmed to cheat the emissions tests. Once independent researchers exposed the fraud, Volkswagen was hit with over $33 billion in fines, settlements, and buybacks. In both of these areas, internal stubbornness and a deliberate disregard for external reality will dismantle a dominant market position in a matter of months. But threats don't just come from the outside. The third fault line is operational risk, which thrives in complex internal systems where a single human error can trigger a catastrophe. Take the financial market maker Knight Capital Group. During a routine software deployment in 2012, a technician accidentally left a piece of deactivated legacy code on a live trading server. This chart tracks what happened next. When the new software went live, it triggered that old code, sending the system into a rapid loop. The algorithms began buying and selling millions of shares in a completely unintended frenzy. In exactly 30 minutes, Knight Capital lost $440 million in cash. The firm was forced into an acquisition simply to cover the resulting debt. Operational risk is the most immediate threat an organization faces. One overlooked procedural flaw can completely erase a business while its executives are out to lunch. Our fourth fault line is financial risk. Even companies generating massive revenue can fail if they mismanage their liquidity and their exposure to broader macroeconomic shifts. This diagram illustrates exactly what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. During the recent tech boom, SVB took $100 billion of short-term cash deposits from startups and locked them into long-term bonds. When the Federal Reserve rapidly raised interest rates to fight inflation, the market value of those long-term bonds plummeted. Startups needed cash and began withdrawing their deposits. SVB was forced to sell those devalued bonds at a massive loss to generate liquidity. Panic spread across social media, triggering a $42 billion bank run in a single day, destroying the institution. That panic perfectly illustrates the final fault line, reputational risk. Today, the internet instantly amplifies local, isolated operational failures into devastating global crises. In 2017, United Airlines security officers violently dragged a passenger off an overbooked flight to accommodate airline employees. Other passengers filmed the incident, and within hours, the footage went viral worldwide. The resulting public outrage and calls for boycotts erased $1 billion from United's market value in just days. Financial and reputational pressures expose the limits of a company's stability. Whether a threat originates from the Federal Reserve or a smartphone camera, external forces will rapidly break a fragile system. Effective enterprise risk management isn't about hiding from all uncertainty. True ERM is a system that allows leadership to safely embrace the positive risks required to grow a business, while mapping out and neutralizing the fatal ones. Proactive management starts by identifying broad environmental risk factors. As this graphic shows, these are underlying conditions, like supply chain bottlenecks or changing consumer preferences, that increase the likelihood of a negative event. Once mapped, organizations track specific risk triggers. These real-time warning signs indicate a theoretical hazard is actively escalating. Catching triggers early allows leadership to activate predefined mitigation pathways, pivoting their strategy long before a crisis materializes. The corporations that survive for decades aren't simply lucky enough to avoid disruption. They are the ones who proactively architect a framework to sail straight through it.